So welcome to the next in our short series of video interviews where we talk to our HR Director of Leadership, where I ask what's next post-COVID-19. So today I have with me Hayley Tatum, who is the Chief People Officer at Asda Stores. So good afternoon, Hayley, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for the invite.
Hayley, just briefly, if you could give us a little better idea about, your role with Asda and your sort of overall responsibilities, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So Chief People Officer for Asda. So we've got 140,000 colleagues across the UK. And my role is HR, communications, obviously sit as a member. There's 6 of us that sit on the board, and I'm one of those 6. Been doing that for 9 years now, which is astonishing to admit, but I have. And then on top of that, I've also, in more recent times, taken a non-exec role for DWP.
Yep.
So it's another big department with a lot of associates in it. So there's lots of parallels, lots of differences, and lots of learning.
Terrific. All right, excellent. So if we kind of move on, so this is all about, I think, as I've said, is really COVID-19 coming through the crisis and preparing for a better future. So my first question really is around, obviously I've talked to different industries so far. So interesting talking to a retailer such as you with different challenges, I would suspect. So what are your present key concerns and challenges for your employees and your organisation sort of right now?
So right now, I'd say 2 really. One is we've clearly been trading throughout this whole experience. You know, we've gone through the heady heights of March where there was panic buying. You know, you just could not buy a roll of toilet roll if you wanted to. So we had all of this mass sort of worry and high peak trade to deal with. And then, of course, lockdown and social distancing and keeping our customers and our colleagues safe when we were learning as we were going. So we've kind of gone through that period of time now, and we've got into a routine, and our colleagues know how to act safely for themselves and others, and have got a level of confidence in how they're serving the public and so on. Having said that, now I think the current issues are around local dynamic lockdowns. So we've seen earlier this week the case in Leicester. So it's really trying to figure out how you go from a national situation to more local ones, where you might be making decisions in a discrete part of the country that are very different to what you might be making for others. So I think that's the thing that we are most, is the currency of the situation at the moment for us. And then on the other side of this, like many other of the businesses that you've spoken to, is our store and our depot colleagues have been working throughout in their normal place of work. Our home office colleagues have continued to work, but we've asked them to work at home. So we've had 3,500 of them working remotely, and our tech team have done an amazing job. Despite all of our concerns that it wouldn't hold up, it has done brilliantly. But we're now in the place of starting to then figure out, how do we start bringing some of those colleagues back? As I said, we've learned a lot about social distancing in our stores and our depots. How do we do that in an office environment where the nature of the work is quite different? Actually, we've had 100% attendance, if you like, because no one's been off sick and very few people have taken holidays. So we've had the benefit of all of our central teams working for us. We're now wanting to try and find the right blend of home working and office working, and how do you get that right? How do you build the confidence for people to come back in? How do you build the purpose for them to come back in? And so that's my other currency, if you like, is returning to a place of work for central teams.
Okay, and so yeah, I can see it's very different from you to some organisations where they've had to furlough or they've had to completely, shut down. So I guess there must have been some technology. You were in pretty good shape, I guess, from a remote working point of view before this. Would that be correct?
Well, yeah, we were. Probably hadn't realised quite how good and robust our systems were. We've really road tested them. We've done big sessions where we've had over 3,000 people all dialed in at the same time, giving briefings, etc. You know, it's worked phenomenally well. Had you have asked me sort of 3-4 months ago whether that was possible, I'd say, oh no, probably not. So I've actually had to even update my own thinking about what's possible in a sort of a flexible working environment. We were doing flexible working. Now we're really doing flexible working. So I do think almost COVID has acted a bit like a time machine. And so all the things we thought were possible in the future, suddenly within weeks, they're happening. And so, yeah, so I think our tech was there. We weren't using it to full benefit. We now are.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing. This being forced to kind of, you know, move very, very rapidly is kind of what we're seeing, which is really good. And I guess then you've probably got the other side of the coin, which is I don't know, potential burnout when you've got staff working day in, day out through this in some challenging times. Let's just, you know, how have you dealt with that kind of well-being piece then?
Yeah, it's been different in different parts of the organisation. So our frontline, our key workers in our stores and our depots, first of all, we had it right back in March when the government first advice came out around vulnerable and those living with clinically vulnerable citizens, what might we do? And because the advice was, you know, shield or socially distance, we decided that for the time being, shielding was the safest thing. So we had 15,500 colleagues shielded, and we decided to shield them for 12 weeks, full pay, until we were certain we knew how to socially distance, and we could guarantee as best as we could that level of safety. And so actually overnight, we lost a big chunk of our workforce to shielding, and lots of other, obviously, retail outlets closed. So we became a place where lots of the public had to come to get their groceries. So demand was going up and our workforce was going down. And so we hired 23,000 temps. Yeah, within such a short space of time. We turned that around. We relied on our existing colleagues, and we went through a friends and family scheme, and that was phenomenal. We also linked up with other businesses that were struggling, that were furloughing colleagues, and we did sort of like business to business arrangements to say, can we get some of your colleagues who might be looking for work to come and help us through this time? And we have had the benefit of some amazing people come and join our business and really, you know, deliver for the public at a time when, you know, we needed that help the most. And they were phenomenal, you know, working alongside long-serving Asda colleagues, which was brilliant. But also the shape of our business completely changed in that from what we were, you know, predominantly a store-based business with an online section. But the online business in the UK for most grocery retailers would have been sub 10%. Of course, with so many customers needing to safely shield, everybody wanted online deliveries or click and collect services. So we all of the grocers really rebuilt that online functionality and grew it, you know, as some, in many cases, tried to double the amount of capacity we were able to serve for the general public at that time. And that totally changes your operating model. You've got less people coming into your stores because they're staying at home and getting online services, but also because of social distancing, you're preventing, you're capping the number of customers that you're actually able to serve per hour. So you're restricting your sales in many ways. So the number of colleagues you need and what you need them to do completely changes with the online business as big as it got. So within now, our online business is where we thought it would be in 8 years' time. So it was where we thought, you know, sort of rather than 8 years, it took 8 weeks, and a little bit of Heath Robinson, a bit of string and sellotape, I will say, to get it there. But you know, the team did a phenomenal job turning it on that quick. But what it meant was we needed people to pick in our stores, to pick all those groceries, and of course, you need to do that when you're closed to the general public, because when you've got people picking for the general public and going around the store, you need to get that done and off the sales floor and, you know, ready to be delivered in early morning. And then that means your store is then full and safe for the paying customer to then come in, and therefore you're not creating social distancing issues. So you suddenly need this massive workforce that can start for you at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you need to be finished by 8 a.m. It's not the most attractive shift. But, you know, we were, as I said, 23,000 people we hired in 4 weeks. And it was, you know, the quality of the people that we managed to bring in was amazing. And it also allowed us to keep those colleagues of our own who were at a higher risk at home and safe. We're now in a position where we're starting to change that over, where now the government guidelines has begun to change back end of June and back end of July. We're now able to do risk assessments on our colleagues to work out what adjustments they might need so that they can come back safely. And then, of course, we're also working with our temps that have helped us, some of whom we're keeping, some of whom are obviously their own businesses are restarting, and we can able to let them go. And you know, this has sort of been a moment in time for us in the business, but it's been astonishing what we've achieved in the last sort of 3 months or so.
I think just the gravity of, you know, those changes in how you have to look at your workforce and change that. I love the piece about collaboration with other businesses as well. I really like that in terms of those people perhaps being furloughed or laid off themselves. So I think that's really nice. Okay, brilliant. Well, that leads us sort of nicely onto sort of question two, which I know you covered a little bit of. So this is about, in most cases, if I'm talking about stage return, we all kind of have been working through this, but it's all about what measures you have put in place, some of the things you're talking about now, I guess, to keep everyone safe and with you as customers and employees, isn't it? So yeah.
Exactly. So in our stores, very clearly we've got occupancy levels. So we have an app that as customers come into the store, we're recording the numbers that we've got. We work out the square footage of a shop. So each shop has a very different level of numbers of customers that can safely come in. And then if you've been in any of our stores, you'll know we've got obviously queuing mechanics, so that people can safely stand in line, but not stand closely, because obviously social distancing is about how close you are, but it's also about how long you stand next to somebody. So we're very careful about that. And we've also got obviously PPE for all of our colleagues should they wish to use it. We've got sneeze guards in front of anybody that's directly serving customers. We're asking customers to pay by card if they can. And most customers actually are really brilliantly moving to mobile payment devices. Actually, mobile scan and go, the uptake on our scan and go service, where a customer just logs onto their phone, does their own scanning on their own phone, checks out with, doesn't need any interaction with any other colleague, but also means that they don't touch anything. So from their own safety, that's hugely successful. And again, that has implications for our operating model, that so many of our customers are choosing to shop that way. So lots of stuff happening inside our stores to protect both customers and colleagues. And again, in our sort of back of house locations, so whether that's depots or our home offices, we do temperature checking on the way in. Again, PPE, one-way systems, again, occupancy levels, how many people can be in a particular floor, or how many people can be in a particular meeting room. All of those things we've added in and getting good success with. And of course, the other thing is we just track attendance. So we're watching all the time for any signs that we might have of the virus, transmission rates, and making sure that every colleague can do the right thing without financial detriment. So it doesn't matter what their sickness eligibility might be. Even a temp that started yesterday, if they feel unwell today, then they are on full pay for the 14 days to make sure that they're not minded to make the wrong choice. So all of those things, we have in place, and we monitor really, really closely. And we're learning as we go, of course. And the same as other businesses.
I mean, I love that. Again, it's that data piece, isn't it, about recording and just seeing those trends and what's going on, which is really good. And just about we talked briefly about your more office-based staff. So you obviously starting to think about how that might change, or how you might reboard those, or where are you at there?
It's a very slow build actually. So we started opening our locations from the middle of May for two reasons really. One, some jobs are quite hard to do remotely. So for those that were really difficult, we would, if you're a product designer, it's very hard to develop a new recipe in your own house on Zoom. So you know that sort of stuff. We want to give access to our buildings for those colleagues. The other thing we did was we did quite a lot of surveys to your earlier point about wellness, and identified colleagues who were struggling working at home. This, you know, working at home is one thing, but enforced home working for a long period of time is quite another. So people possibly in more difficult relationships or living alone, or just frankly, I'll be honest, you know, finding homeschooling and you know, just the hubbub of being around other people all the time, very difficult to concentrate. So again, giving priority access to people who needed it most. And then gradually now over time, staying very close to government advice is to be able to try and offer more of a blended experience, to say, we love you working from home, we love that you're taking full responsibility for that, but actually, if you need to collaborate, if it's helpful to connect with your team in person, to be able to brainstorm some stuff or to actually just check in and know that you're all okay. There's so much you can do on Zoom. I think we've all been involved in quizzes and goodness knows what else, but you get to a point where you think, oh God. So we've found ways, and we're beginning to find more ways to find a balance for people. So it's not just all of one thing, it's a bit more of a blend. But again, very slowly, very carefully. Public transport is an issue that we're not recommending. Schooling, you know, many of our colleagues still have to, do homeschooling, so they can't come into work. So it's sort of a what is working best for people. And I think if you don't force it, I think if you allow people to make their own choices, that trust that, you know, we're looking out for your safety and we want you to make the right choices for you. This is everything we have in place. I think that reputationally is building all the time about how did my employer look after me during this period of time, and that, you know, front and central really matters.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's lots of two-way conversations coming out throughout all these interviews, which is listening to the employees and, you know, if they're anxious or whatever it might be. And yeah, as you rightly say, public transport, major issues if you're in a major city like London or so. Yeah, I can see all of those kind of problems. Okay.
One of the benefits of that actually has been previously, we're in a city centre, we're in Leeds, but car parking's a nightmare. So although we provide free parking, you know, it has over time been such a premium to get a car parking space relatively close to the buildings, you don't have to walk too far. That's caused people to start getting to work earlier and earlier and earlier. So from a, you know, who can do that and how flexible does it feel to work there? The car park was actually quite a restrictor. So of course all of this has blown that up, and we're finding that people can come in at different points of the day that better suits their lives and keeps them safe too, and it just means that desire to get a space by the door or get a space that I don't have to walk when it's dark, you know, imagine Leeds, it's dark and it rains sideways, then, you know, that has been a motivator previously on when people chose to work, and now that's gone away.
Yeah, and again, that leads us very nicely on, Hayley. Thank you very much. To so because learning is such a key part here, and as you are having to operate very differently, you're seeing opportunities, and that's what I really like that. So, question 3 is: what are the opportunities you're exploring from the learning from this crisis? And also, again, you touched on it briefly, but will the destination for the organisation in terms of Asda change in terms of shopping in the future? So how is that affecting you, your HR function, and your organisation and employees?
Big question. So I think the first bit for us as a people function, clearly the amount of hiring we've been doing at pace, and we can't go through the usual routine that we might have done. You have to do it at speed and find ways where perhaps something that was quite a long process has got to be accelerated, simplified. And so we've managed to do that. We've learned along the way which bits you can't simplify and which bits don't work so well. So we've figured that out together, but that now has changed forever. the way we hire. The same in terms of our training. So again, how do you train people to be a home delivery driver when you can't put a driver in the cab next to them? So again, you've got to redesign. How does that work? How are you going to do that? How do you do that safely? So again, we've had to work that out. We've had to find spaces in our car parks where you're allowed to practice in a bigger space in case there's any accidents. At least you've got to find ways of doing things like that, which we didn't need to think about before. So lots of our training and development has had online versions. The whole lot has had to be converted to ensure that people can practice safely, have a go at things in an online way. So that's a big change for my own team. I think for the overall business, because digital and customers are behaving in much more of an online fashion, that fundamentally changes the way our jobs work and the way we serve the public. So again, big changes for the current workforce and how we might reskill them to do something else in the future. So their job security is there, but the nature of the work they do is very different. With so many of our customers choosing perhaps to scan their own shopping and pay remotely on their phone, that means maybe the colleagues currently that were on the front end that we would all think about when we visit a supermarket, they're not needed in as many in such high volumes. But with so many more customers wanting to shop online, there are different roles now required in our stores. Now that's a bit of a shift mentally for our colleagues who've performed brilliantly well for many, many years doing a particular job. So to actually say, well, we don't want that job anymore, we want this one over here, that does take engagement, that does take, change management. However, what we are noticing through, this period of time is just how flexible people are, just how willing they are to try something else, to help out in another area. And by doing so, perhaps some of the apprehension and resistance we might have felt before, that's dissolved. And we found that the team spirit has really, come to the fore, and people are much more willing to, I work on the George clothing department, but we haven't had much clothing sales, of course, in recent times, so I'm going to go and help out somewhere else. And the willingness to do that has really, really been significantly different. And that, I think, is one of the big learnings, is about how do you engage your colleagues to sort of muck in a bit. And as a result of that, what have they learned about themselves, and are they therefore willing to do on perhaps an ongoing basis? So yeah, our model is changing. It keeps changing. That's the other thing I'd say is I don't think I've learned anything yet that's gone, oh, there's the answer, because it does keep moving. So I have to keep moving my learning and curiosity to keep up. And I think that's going to be the way of the world. We won't go back, but we will keep iterating to something else.
Yeah. Again, nice way of putting it, because I think we can't go back. It's simple as that. We have to go to a better place and that's what we'll keep on saying. So that learning is key. And as you say, you don't know at the moment where that end destination is, but we can work it out as we go along, can't we? And that empathy piece, I think everyone's in the same boat. I've talked about this a lot. Stakeholders, shareholders, employees, we're in the same position. So, we've got to get on with it together. So
as leaders through that, you're sort of, hope is not a strategy, but actually as a leader, if you can give people hope, that you might not know the answer, but about where this is going to end up, but if you can create that sense of, we're going to get through this together, we'll find a different way, we're looking out for one another, you can encourage and create hope for others. And I think that's actually quite an important leadership skill through these times.
Yeah, I agree again. And I think that, again, leadership, no one knows the answers. Leaders don't know the answers when they're the ones supposed to. So actually that makes it very human, doesn't it, the side? And I think you're quite right there. Okay, so, and then finally then for you, so you're in an HR role in Asda at these very challenging times. So how has it been for you? How are you feeling about it all?
Exhausted. It's been such a life experience. I can't even say a once in a career, it's a once in a life experience that we're not through, of course, but the role of my team has been right in the centre of the decisions we've been taking. This is a very human emergency, and therefore the decisions we're taking, whether that be from a customer, a colleague, the communities we serve, we're constantly taking stock of what is the right thing to do. And, you know, I'm not saying the P&L, it doesn't matter. Of course it does. But actually, the decision making has been very much about, you know, our people and doing the right thing. And for a business that's been trading throughout, actually, we made choices around the job retention scheme from the government and chose not to furlough. We could have furloughed some of our colleagues, but actually it didn't feel right when there were other businesses that, you know, were struggling and may not come through this this time. So there are things that are the right things to do. There are things that reputationally you know that you need to stand tall on, however hard they might be. That you stick to your guns and you stick to knowing that you've made the right choice, and you work out how you'll find a way to make that balance and add up. And you know, you put your people front and central, and that's really been you know, a privilege leading the team that I am lucky enough to do, and also the exec team that I'm part of. You know, everybody was in that mindset. Everybody was pulling into this direction that says, right, how do we make sure that we're safe first? Secondly, we make sure that we can continue to feed the nation. We have a key worker responsibility here. What is our job? How do we make sure that that continues? And lastly, we have an obligation as a group of business leaders to make sure this business is successful. But it was really in that order that we took our decisions and continue to do so. And I'm really proud of that. It was exhausting, and I joke at the beginning, but you know, we were always on because something changed almost every hour at the beginning. You know, a big decision was needed, and you were like, to your point earlier, I don't know the answer to this. So what do I need to do to figure this out? And you just listened and learned and made a decision. And at times you learned a bit more a few days later and changed the decision and upgraded it if you could. And not being worried that there was any, you know, to show vulnerability that says, I did say that, but actually I'm now moving my thinking. And you just have to keep doing that. So, and working from home actually has been quite a lesson for us all. So I think for myself, you know, being here and every day felt the same. There was no definition to it. I couldn't tell the difference between a Monday and a Saturday. It was just like this bulk of Zoom calls. And I think you have to think about your own health and well-being so that you're fit and able and energetic enough to make the choices on behalf of for me, tens of thousands of people that I have responsibility for. So it's been certainly a high learning experience, but one that I'm very proud to have been in the business that I'm in, and alongside the people that I'm lucky enough to work with.
Yeah, you didn't say you needed a holiday. That was the only bit you left out there. But no, but I think, you know, absolutely. You know, I keep saying HR's in this critical role. It's the biggest asset is your people, and it's how you look after your people through these very tough times, which is going to be the key. You know, it's a real brand, isn't it? Be a brand ambassador, and kind of that's.
Somebody said to me, coronavirus is contagious, but so is kindness and patience and enthusiasm. So, you know, if you can, you know, emit that and let that be spread across your business at this time, then, you know, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, that's really, so again, a lovely place to end. So thank you for your time today, Hayley. I'll just say to everyone quickly, look out for next time when we interview another HR director and find out about the opportunities ahead for the new better. So thank you very much, Hayley.
You're very welcome. Thank you.